Good morning and happy Mother's Day. It is a special weekend. I trust that you will connect with your family at some point in time, perhaps even today. Hope everybody in your family is well. Everybody is safe and healthy. This morning, I will be addressing families. I want to talk about families. Families come in all shapes and sizes and colors and ideologies. And this morning I want to talk about the importance of family. There are three things I want you to take away from this sermon. Everybody needs a family. Whether they're 9 years old or 90, we never outgrow that need. All of us need a family. Secondly, everyone needs a healthy family. And thirdly, here's the challenge I have for you today. If your home life is not healthy, fix it. I want to talk about that as well. We're going to look at two healing miracles in the New Testament. This is because Mark combines these miracles. Mark has a technique in his writing that is rather unique. He likes to start a story, then he will interrupt that with another story, and then after he has resolved that second story, he goes back to the original story. That's what he does in this particular passage. Jesus is somewhere near the Sea of Galilee. He is on the shore. Large crowd has gathered around him. He is teaching them. All of a sudden, while he is teaching, someone interrupts him. The man's name is Jairus. I would imagine his presence even shocked many of the people who were in the crowd. Oh, they knew Jairus. He was the leader of the synagogue. Very prominent, very powerful man in his community. And he does the most unusual thing. He approaches Jesus, he falls to his knees and pleads and begs Jesus to come to his home. He has a 12-year-old daughter. Evidently, she is at the point of death, critically ill. Please, he says, I beg you, come, touch my daughter, and heal her. Jesus, without any hesitation at all, agrees to go. And so Jesus and Jairus begin walking to Jairus' home, and the crowd follows. Here's the second story. As they are walking, there is a woman. I would imagine she has her head covered and her face as much as possible. She wants to remain anonymous and obscure. We don't even know her name, do we? And she makes her way through that crowd. You can just see her as she weaves her way through that crowd, oh so quietly, and she gets close to Jesus. She then reaches down and touches the hem of his garment. Why would she do this? For 12 years, she has been sick, and she has suffered. She has gone to doctor after doctor. Mark says spent all of her resources trying to find a cure, and yet she never did. She's miserable. She's heard about Jesus. She knows what he's capable of doing. And she has so much faith that she says, I don't have to bother him. I don't have to interrupt him like Jairus just did. I don't have to have him come to my home. If I can just touch the hem of his garment, perhaps enough power would flow through my body and heal me. And this is what she does. As soon as she touches him, Mark says all of a sudden she realized, I have been healed. But Jesus also realized something. He realized that somebody had touched him differently from the other people who were around him. And he just stops in his tracks. And he says, who touched me? You can imagine. The disciples, when they hear that, find that incredible, that question. And they even give him some pushback. What do you mean, who touched me? There are so many people who are pressing up around you. Oh, this is not the same kind of touch as someone who hit me with their elbow out of curiosity, just wanting to get closer. Someone touched me differently. So Jesus then began looking around because he knew somebody was there who did not want to even be known. And he looked, and all of a sudden he saw this woman. I imagine with her head bowed, just hoping the crowd would go on, and Jesus would too. She did not want to be embarrassed. But he looked at her, and he asked her, are you the one? Yes, I'm the one that touched you. And Mark says, with fear and trembling, she then began telling her story. She told Jesus why she had done it. When Jesus looked at her, he noticed something about her that perhaps no one else did. And that is, she was alone. She was frightened. He knew that she probably expected Jesus to scold her, to reprimand her. How dare you do this? Because that's the reaction she got from so many people in the community. And she was expecting it probably from Jesus. And so there she was, frightened and alone. And Jesus recognized she had no advocate pleading on her behalf. There was no father figure. There was no family member who was going to come to me on her behalf. She's come alone. After hearing her story, what is the first word that Jesus said? What's the first word he said to her? Daughter. Let's use our imagination a little bit. I'm going to take some scissors right now, and I'm going to cut that word daughter out of this text in this passage, and I'm going to lay it right here. It is the most important word in this passage that is going to connect these two stories. Jairus' 12-year-old daughter was dying, and he came to plead on her behalf. She had no one. So what did Jesus say to her? I will be your father. When is the last time anyone had ever called her daughter? When is the last time she felt that love, that wanted, that secure? Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed and liberated from your suffering. Now Mark's going to go back to the original story. Jesus continues his journey with Jairus. But as they are walking, some of Jairus' servants approach Jairus, and they have terrible news. Jairus, your daughter is dead. You don't need to bother the teacher anymore. Jesus overheard the conversation. He looked at Jairus. He said, Jairus, don't listen to them. Believe in me. They continued to walk. They get to the house. When they do, there's a large crowd that had gathered around the house. Mourners, people grieving. making a lot of commotion. When Jesus saw them, and many of them were in the house, some were outside, he sent everybody outside of the house. Only took into the house Jairus, the child's mother, and then Peter, James, and John, 3 of his disciples. They go into the house. Jesus goes to the bedside of this little 12-year-old girl, and he says, "Little girl, I tell you to get up." And she did. And I love the way that Mark concludes the story. Jesus told them 2 things. First of all, get her something to eat. And secondly, don't tell anyone what you have just witnessed in this room. There's a reason for that I cannot get into now. I'd love to, but I cannot go and do that now. There are so many people in that culture, religious people, if they had that ability, that would have exploited it, would have used it for their own benefit to gain popularity and power and even manipulate people. Jesus wanted no part of that. What he did for Jairus' daughter, he did out of the love of his heart for all mankind, all people, all little girls. It was God who healed this little girl through him. And that was fine with Jesus, to let God have the glory. Well, again, I love this story, and I love the way Mark tells this story. I think there are 4 times in his gospel that he is going to begin telling a story, interrupt it with a second one, and then he's going to finish the first one. And what I find so interesting and intriguing about studying passages like this one is that you have to figure out, why are these 2 stories together? Because it's obvious. Mark feels that one story would be incomplete without the other one. And if you're going to understand both stories, they must be studied together. And there is always a link. It's like putting 2 chains together. There's always one link that is going to connect the 2 chains. What is the link that connects these 2 stories? What do they have in common? Well, there is one word in both stories that connects them. Remember the word that I cut out and I put right here? I said, you probably don't see it, but I do. It is the word daughter. It is the key to understanding the significance of our text. In the first story, the father of this 12-year-old girl is the main character. His name is Jairus. Without his help, this little girl would have never been healed. This is why no sacrifice on his part was too great. If Jairus had to swallow his pride, if he had to accept his limitations, if he had to embrace a humble mindset, if he had to set aside his public persona in order to get his daughter the help she needed, he was willing to do it. This proud leader of the synagogue, who was, as I said earlier, one of the most prominent and powerful men in his community, did what was inconceivable to most people. He fell at the feet of Jesus and begged for help. Think about it. This man was accustomed to people falling at his feet, begging for help. Never thought he would be on the other side of that equation. But he did it. Why? Jairus loved his daughter, and his love for his daughter was stronger than his need to protect his image or to avoid criticism. Nothing that day was too difficult for Jairus if it meant saving the life of his daughter. On the other hand, the woman who slipped up behind Jesus just to touch the hem of his garment, as I also said earlier, had no advocate. No father was going to come and fall before Jesus and plead her case. She was all alone. And Jesus quickly realized this. When he turned to see who touched him in a way that others had not, he saw no one at this woman's side ready to defend her. Timidly and reluctantly, she had to answer his questions and tell her story in front of strangers. So what was the first word that Jesus said to her in this awkward situation? Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Daughter? Was this woman Jesus' biological daughter? Of course she was not. Then why did Jesus refer to her this way? Well, first of all, he wanted to put her at ease. He knew she was frightened. She was anxious. She was feeling all alone and so unworthy. But in addition to this, Jesus knew that she needed more than physical healing that day, as important as this was. Her value and worth needed to be restored. Her fragile ego needed to be mended. Her spirits needed to be lifted. She needed to know that someone cared about her, that someone loved her like a mother and a father love a child. In other words, this woman needed to be a part of a family. So, how does this story speak to us, especially on Mother's Day? Yes, I pondered that for some time last week, as I do every passage I preach. Let me share some thoughts with you. Mentioned this earlier, didn't I? Number one, everyone needs a family. This 12-year-old girl certainly did, but so did this woman who had been sick for 12 years. Yes, she had exhausted her resources trying to get help, and she approached Jesus all alone. The connection we feel in the womb of our mother sets the stage for the rest of our life. At some level, we need to be nourished and nurtured until we die. We never outgrow the need for community, and this includes family. Everyone needs a family. Secondly, everyone needs a healthy, loving, supportive family who provides the best for them and brings out the best in them. You see, character, maturity, responsibility are passed on to us by family members who invest their lives in our future. There will never come a time in your life or mine when this is unnecessary. This is why all of us must remain connected to family members who teach us and guide us, inspire us and challenge us, encourage us, console us, forgive us, and family members who provide a safe place for us to fall when we have been beaten and bruised by the harshness of life or we have made mistakes. All of us need others in our lives who love us unconditionally and eternally. We need to know we are never alone and will never face an intimidating challenge on our own. So I ask you, does this describe your home? Do you have this kind of family? Are you doing your part to make your home healthy and loving and supportive of everyone under your roof? If not, why? What is more important to you than being the kind of person your family needs you to be? What changes do you need to make in your life so your home will be healthier? I know of nothing more important than relationships. At the same time, I know of nothing more difficult to create and to sustain than healthy relationships. Relationships are messy. This is because we are all a combination of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And all of us are capable of undermining and sabotaging the relationships we cherish the most. This is human nature. Our divine nature, though, will not settle for less than our best. Our divine nature demands more of us. It requires us to go to great lengths to diagnose and fix problems that arise. You know what impresses me most about Jairus, the father of this little 12-year-old girl? He was willing to do whatever was necessary to give his daughter a chance to live. He threw caution to the wind, didn't he? He put everything on the line. No sacrifice was too great. He would leave no stone unturned. He left no option on the table. Do you love your family this much? Are you willing to look beyond your personal interests in order to see what others need from you? Is someone reaching out to you and asking you to cooperate with them so together you can address problems that are threatening your relationships and your family's future? Why haven't you done it? If someone's reaching out to you, if someone is saying to you, we've got some problems that we need to address in our family, in our home life, an extended family, why have you not reached out to them and said, let's do it? Who needs you to love them enough to try to resolve your issues and solve your problems? Will you allow me to be very assertive right now and rather blunt? I think too much is at stake for me to be vague. If your home is broken, fix it. If your relationships are on life support, get help. Quit making excuses. Stop counting the cost. Break out of your shell of denial or complacency. The deepest level of love always involves sacrifice. There is no easy way to do anything that is hard. So take the first steps this week. I'm talking about today. I'm talking about this week. Take the first steps toward a new and better relationship. Like Jairus and the woman who approached Jesus on her own. You may have sought help at other times and in other places. And what I'm saying to you today is this: try again. Put down your defenses. Let go of your defeatist attitude. I am confident Jairus and this woman are glad they did that. I believe you will be too. Could I offer one other piece of advice? If you know someone, like the woman in this story, the woman who had no family, nobody to plead her case, no advocate, if you know someone who is struggling on their own, would you reach out to them this week? Open your heart, open your arms, open your home to them. Make them a part of your family. Provide the companionship and the support they need. Do for this lonely person you may encounter this week. Do for this lonely person what Jesus did for the woman that approached him. I assure you, if you do, it will change your life and certainly change theirs. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Thank you for being a good role model. Thank you for teaching us what we need to do. And thank you through the Holy Spirit for giving us the power we need to take these first steps. But we pray in the name of Christ. Amen. Well, again, I wish you a happy Mother's Day. Enjoy your family time, even if it's virtual. But hopefully you can be together today. Enjoy a wonderful meal. Have a wonderful day.